I was first made aware that people were knitting red hats in Minnesota by people commenting on an old video of mine, covering the story of how the Nazis outlawed red hats in Norway during World War II. When I got another message over on Instagram, I understood something was happening. As the Norwegian red hat guy online, this was accelerating, that the old symbol is getting a new life. My first reaction as a writer was to sit down and gather my thoughts on the meaning of the red hat as a symbol of resistance, thoughts I've been pondering for years. How can we best resist the actual ideas that destroyed Europe back then, rather than become just another faction in an eternal back and forth between groups? What I am about to read to you is the text I wrote, found at redhatfactory.com/creed. I begin with a small introduction. Then I have written one section for each of three values I wish to highlight. Here goes the introduction. Honoring and remembering the Norwegian World War II resistance movement by wearing a red hat for democracy, menneskeverd, and unity in this resistance revived. Menneskeverd is the Norwegian word for the value of the human being merely for being human. During World War II, Norwegians began wearing red knit caps as a sign of resistance to the Nazis who had occupied us. Thursday, February 26, 1942, such wearage was outlawed as a form of protest. Therefore, we encourage anyone and everyone everywhere to put on a red hat on February 26th, which this year, 2026, happens to fall on a Thursday again, in support of democracy, menneskeverd, and unity. If you have the chance, we encourage you to get your knit cap from a neighbor who knits or a local shop. Here follows the creed. Inspired by the Norwegian resistance movement, we stand for, number 1, democracy. Gunnar Sønsteby, Norway's most decorated resistance member, said the following, cited as his mission statement on his official website. As long as I live, I will do my part in making sure we never forget what the fight was all about. We shall not take the fundamental values our democracy is built upon for granted. We shall use every opportunity to remind each other about the importance of maintaining a living and engaged democracy. Democracy. A simple word, yet so complicated an institution. But in light of what the Norwegian resistance movement fought against, it is understood as the counterpart to authoritarianism. It is what we the people uphold to push back against power being consolidated with a small group of people. We stand for democracy by saying what we believe freely, whether in large-scale demonstration against the government or in our inner circle of friends. We'll be wearing our red hats as a reminder that we are free and allowed to stand for whatever we want to, and we allow our fellow man to differ in opinion. 2. Menneskeverd, or human worth. In the literature surrounding this time period in Norway, as well as in later references to the resistance, the word menneskeverd appears perhaps more frequently than any other. Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre describes in a speech what Gunnar Sønsteby said during his school visits, so I assume this is a paraphrasing of general sentiments. We didn't only fight against an enemy, but for something. For a free society, for menneskeverd, for peace. Menneskeverd means the value of the human being, merely for being human. It stands in stark contrast to the Nazi propaganda that relentlessly grouped people based on race, ethnicity, and political belonging, to be used as pawns in a game of power. Focus on every human's fundamental equal worth breaks down the barriers and renders this form of power play obsolete. An authoritarian leader cannot rise to power unless we the people are going along with a language of dehumanization and stark labeling and grouping of people. Norwegian poet Nordahl Grieg published in 1936 a poem called For the Youth. It was widely circulated in secret by the Norwegian resistance movement as a mantra and moral anchor. Here are a few lines that stand out with the theme menneskeverd. Here is your defense against violence. Here is your sword. Faith in our life, in the human worth. Then the weapons fall powerless to the ground. If we create human worth, we create peace. War is spite for life. Peace is to create. Number 3, unity across political, ethnic, and religious aisles. Under German World War II propaganda, it was all about the Jew, the foreigner, the Bolshevik. The labels were used to stoke fear of the other and separate good people from each other. All the while, the Aryan label became a justification for doing anything to your enemy. Adolf Hitler said in his book Mein Kampf, the mightiest counterpart to the Aryan is represented by the Jew. Today's media has been turning up the heat on similar rhetoric for years, and it's time to resist. Labels such as leftist, right-winger, MAGA, Nazi, communist, or the immigrants are frivolously thrown around, stoking the flames of division. It divides good people into imagined groups. We resist first by realizing that media is thriving off of division. Then we put down our phones, spend more time in the real world, breathe the free air, and learn to know and value individuals that are different from us. Thus, we break the spell. When it comes to bringing crimes to justice or demonstrating for justice, it must always be on a case-by-case basis, based on action, not group belonging. A red hand-knit cap is as unique as the hand that knit it. Let that be the symbol that we are all human beings and individuals, carrying human stories worth sharing with each other. And we don't accept the factioning and division. Listen to someone, care for someone. As my friend Elias said, maybe the red is a symbol that we all bleed the same. And I don't know any symbol more simple and unifying. Finally, resistance is to not lose hope that there is some good in this world and it's worth fighting for, to quote Sam in the Lord of the Rings movies. Resistance is to speak freely and without fear, whether in public demonstration or to your inner group of friends. Resistance is to refuse simplistic language that pits groups against each other. Resistance is to take a break from media when it stokes your fear and anger. Resistance is to get to know your neighbor, especially those unlike yourself. The red hat to me has in times of less tension been a symbol of adventure. I would say your adventure begins when you realize all you can do is the next thing in front of you. And then you do it. Just do something good. Quoting Tolkien, "It is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till." J.R.R. Tolkien in The Return of the King. Quoting Theodore Roosevelt, who was citing Squire Bill, "Do what you can, with what you got, where you are." As an addendum, I need to state that I wrote this text while taking a step back, looking at Norwegian resistance history, World War II Germany, as well as a bird's eye view of movements that have been sweeping across America and are intensifying. But I need to state that 1, when the divisive language comes from the government itself, it is far more dangerous than when smaller groups throw it against each other. 2, in the case of ICE specifically, which triggered this grassroots knitters movement, we stand with Minneapolis in that we want to see a reduction in the presence, budget, and power of ICE, and an increase in ways which they are held liable for their actions.